Do you have any other pets?
We have 3 cats
Ah.
and a bunch of goldfish.
My
sisters
parents have a cat.
together 10 guinea pigs.
Whoa.
And my oldest sister have 2 horses. Yeah.
Wow, quite a menagerie.
Yeah, a little zoo. Oh, and two little birds.
Well, all we have is... I used to keep an iguana as a pet until 2008, which is like 10 years ago. And after that one passed away, it's just a cat with my parents. I like to love animals from a distance because the responsibility is very real.
Yeah, I'm also not sure if I would have a own pet if I would live alone. Well, at least a cat makes it obvious that it wants something to eat. Our oldest one is just
Anyways, back to the recording. Are we back online?
We are back online.
Cool. So this is part 2 of CM Kosemen and Joschua Knüppe interviewing. And
the last name, by the way, is Knüppe.
Knüppe. Okay, I'm very sorry. Yeah. I must have mispronounced that before in my podcast too, but now I know better. And can you tell me how you got into this world in the first place? For me, it was Jurassic Park, plain and simple, but how did it go with you?
For me, it was probably Disney's Fantasia.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah, as a little kid, I watched it up and down, and with Igor Stravinsky's music in the background, and of course later A Land Before Time.
That was also in my formation list too.
Yeah.
Just a simple.
Then came Walking with Dinosaurs, actually.
Aha. For me, it was Jurassic Park, Fantasia, and well, I guess that. Well, also that old Dinosaurs CD game was probably a big influence too. By the way, a big parenthesis about Stravinsky, Fantasia, and Jurassic Park. Did you notice in the Jurassic Park soundtrack, there's this bit that goes, it's the Danger theme, which goes na 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 na. Did you notice how this is a example of John Williams' genius, but did you notice how that was a borrowed motif from Stravinsky's Rite of the Spring?
Yeah, there are many similarities.
There's a slower version of that exact same motif.
Yeah.
And I think, well, I may be reading too much into it, but it seems that John Williams was reading into chaos theory. And, you know, in the Jurassic Park novel, chaos theory is also a big deal.
That's possible. Yeah.
It's all about like complexity getting out of control and becoming unmanageable and life finding a way. And the bit that was in the Danger theme in Jurassic Park, in Fantasia, you see it in the part where the fish are evolving out of water, and it's a more slower like and obviously Stravinsky didn't write this thinking about dinosaurs, but by the time John Williams got around to composing for Jurassic Park, it was practically like stamped together in people's minds.
I actually read once that Stravinsky was the only composer who was still alive when Fantasia was made, and so he was the only one who could see what was done with his work, and it says that he was pretty horrified.
Wow, really?
Yeah, that he totally didn't like it, and it's such a shame because it fits perfectly in my opinion. But
oh yeah.
I guess he had very different pictures in his mind when he wrote that.
Well, Stravinsky was a bit of a more extreme romantic, almost a symbolist, and he must have had some kind of like heroic Germanic myth in his mind, because that's what the actual rite of spring is about, isn't it? Some sort of
about
sacrifice scenario.
Yeah, a sacrifice of a Russian girl who dances to death for the gods of spring.
So in his mind, it was more like a Lord of the Rings scenario, almost like.
Yeah, a little. Yeah.
And then he goes, and I could understand a lot of culture which we at this day and age we think it's like legendary and something. When it came out, it was pretty routine pop culture.
Yeah.
And Fantasia being case to the point. Okay, so any questions from your end? I got some more, but I believe let's give the mic to you, Evid.
Yeah, it's we do this very spontaneously. So in the moment, I think I have no question. But if I stumble over one, I will call you out.
Okay. What would be your, if the god of paleontology came to you and said, Joschua Knüppe, I will reveal to you one animal from the entire past of the world, but it could only be one, and there could be none other. Which would you really like to see?
Oh, that's a tough one. Oh, a little moment. I will need to open the door for the cat.
Cool, no problem.
And I'm back. So, well, first thing which came to my mind was Tyrannosaurs. Because it's only known from these claws. On the other hand, we have now plenty of close relatives, so I think it's no longer that mysterious or pretty likely.
It would be a bit like a moa.
How it looked like.
Something like a big moa with bigger wings
and giant claws and fantastic. I guess.
And it not just limited to dinosaurs, by the way.
Yeah, of course. I try to think about something mysterious and awesome at the same time.
I would just ask him, show me the biggest terrestrial animal ever.
That would be cool too. Yeah.
I would just search by parameters, and it would probably be one of the sauropods, which would probably be some of the most interesting animals.
Yeah, I mean,
there's so much that's unknown about them. The nostrils, the skulls. I mean, I'm sure you consider this too. If you look at the brachiosaur skull or the skull of a Nemegtosaurus, one of the titanosaurs.
Yeah, it's totally
there's
strange
just
stuff
something completely unknown and bizarre going on there, which we just even haven't begun to scratch the surface, in my opinion. So I think that would be for me. And I don't know. I also think that, I mean, I don't believe in this like a true believer, but let's just say I wouldn't be surprised if in the past there would be other civilizations by creatures that are not human, whether they're
humans.
Or but I mean, maybe some sort of intelligent dinosaurs or something. And by civilization, I don't mean like ancient Greece, like columns or philosophers, but like Papua New Guinea level stuff. I wouldn't be surprised. This is a very fringe opinion to make, so it's not my true belief. But if, again, the god of paleontology came to me and I said to them, show me a prehistoric civilization, and the number of the answers was greater than 0, I wouldn't be surprised.
That would be totally cool, yeah.
And another question, well, how do you think the internet, YouTube especially, has affected, these matters? Because you do these really great speculative zoology challenges, and if you could maybe just start by telling a bit about them, and then your answer to where the internet is taking us in terms of paleontology, speculative zoology, or both.
Well, these spec challenge, how I call them, normally I have every 2 or 3 weeks I introduce a new topic. My first one was, for example, realistic skull crawler, these monsters from King Kong Skull Island, and to the task for people who like to participate was to create a possible concept for a believable skull crawler, and I try to make it as diverse as possible. In the moment we try some plans, and it's very cool to see how strange ideas come up over the course of 2 weeks.
And what was the second one?
The second one was create a believable pelagic sloth, anteater, or armadillo.
Xenarton, yeah, that was great too. And then the third one was, I think this was the best, and you should do more like this. So you gave us this amazing fossil.
I drew a disarticulated skeleton of an alien species, and now figure out what it could be.
Well, that was a creature from your own world design project, Nia. Was it not?
One I haven't published yet. It's from a planet which is still very much in the sketching phase. And
Oh, I know how those things go, brother. Like, I had my own world design project, and it's called Snaiad, and like most of you viewers already know this, but let's just say it again for people who are just starting to listen. But so the thing is, I've got another big project in my hands. After that, I want to start with Snaiad. And for me, it's become like this, this is maybe an inappropriate allegory, but in the United States, if you go to the South, you always find these like Southern separatists or extremists, or like people who are really nostalgic about the Confederate States. And they have got this saying, "Oh, make no mistake about it, the South will rise again." And for me, it's like that. Yes, Snaiad will rise again, and it's for 10 years almost. I'm still trying to bring the bloody thing back up. But I think the more you think about it, the more time passes, the more things you realize you could have done better, and just grows.
It's already after a few years, I look back at some of my stuff and think, oh God. Good that I never published that, or good that.
For 2 years, in my mind was, I said, even though the old Snaiad paintings are good enough, I wanted to redo them. How to redo them? I need a new method. Digital, traditional, watercolors, pen, ink. And even when I was doing all the other stuff, working, whatever, it was still on the back of my mind. I was like, how am I going to get this true? And I think I found the answer now, but still going back to this persistence of vision thing we discussed earlier, like when you convince yourself of the reality of an imaginary animal, a place or a world, there is no coming out of it because it will always stay with you, and you will always keep building it, and it becomes an interesting companionship almost, because you grow up with this thing really in your head, and I'm sure it's happening with you, it's happening with me, and
I have this world Silvanus, named after the Greek god of forest, and it's full
very Germanic name too.
Or maybe it's just my pronunciation. But it's full of pseudo-anthropotic beasts, and is basically a little moon full of with a global ocean and living tectonic plates, you might say, of swimming forests.
Wow, that's I didn't know that about Silvanus, but
and it's constantly growing. But on the other side, I look at some of the earlier work and think, you could make it even more alien. In some aspects, it's still too earthly for me.
Also, one of the things that happened to me was that even with Snyad, I found some of the old things were too mechanical, and the more I learned with nature, patterns of evolution, or even just body plans, and I realized that with some things I was just such an amateur, and if I could redo them I would, but that's another endless cycle right there.
It's I also sometimes look at mechanical technological systems to get new inspirations, because I think, nature has done so much, where to look next, and but then again, after a few years I realized, that's totally nonsense what I did there, and nature has done it already much better. And
The Simpsons did it. That's a famous South Park joke where they're looking for new episodes, and it turns out it's been a Simpsons episode already. But anyways.
It's not surprising with a show with so many episodes.
Yeah. And what do you think about the way internet has impacted these business? The YouTube communities, even like Facebook conversations.
I think in the moment YouTube is still way too all over the place to really influence the paleo world, how I call it, in a positive way.
But it's also strange how, especially with channels like Trey the Explainer, there's like thousands of people. It's unbelievable.
There is very good stuff out there, but on the other side there is so much crap. Which just so the good stuff just pales in comparison to all these awesome bro videos talking about how T-Rex is more mighty than Spinosaurus. And I think on Facebook or DeviantArt, for example, you can far better filter out such stuff. And
also maybe in Tumblr too, but I don't know much about Tumblr.
I'm not there, but I heard it's not that bad.
Well, I host my web pages on Tumblr. Basically, separate pages are separate Tumblrs, and I noticed that dinosaurs regularly get, like, if I post an alien or a lizard or something, it's like maybe 20 whatever. If I post a Tyrannosaur, it's like 8,000 or something.
It's ridiculous. And for example, on YouTube I get constantly questions like, when will you do the next T-Rex? And I now decided I will do one T-Rex for video 100. but that's it. It's way too overrated. As you said, it's kind of holy.
Yeah.
I don't want to have something to do with that.
I mean, I find T-Rex is overrated.
Yeah,
but I also find
cool
it's not
animal, very interesting.
It's not an extremely interesting one.
Yeah.
Like, I personally find something like Alioramus or like even Albertosaurus to be like far more strange, kind of, I don't know, with attention worthy.
Or all these very early species with a weird head crests.
Yeah, by all means.
Yeah, or Eutyrannos with which skull looks like a Charodontosaur. No? And all the fluff, of course. It's awesome.
It's amazing how we have the whole animal and we still can't really pin down exactly what it was.
Yeah.
And refresh my mind on this because I actually don't know the answer. Did Tyrannosaurs gradually develop from previous Carnosaurs, or did they start out as little small things when things like Allosaurus were already big and running around? How did that?
They started pretty small, I think, in the late Jurassic, with species not much larger than a shepherd, maybe. And for the most time of their evolution, they stayed pretty small, I think, or middle-sized. And only in the last part of the Cretaceous, they really grew into these huge, enormous mega predators and began to really dominate the land-based ecosystems, at least in some parts of the world.
But then again, how does this explain Eutyrannos? Because that was already kind of big.
Yeah.
And Carcharodontosaur-like, and if I'm not mistaken, a bit early too. So.
Yeah, I think there's a theory out there that this whole preserved ecosystem in China was somehow isolated. At least somehow, and that's so. Small tyrannosaurs maybe found there a new niche which they could explore, and they did.
So it was like
other large carnivores.
Early grade tyrannosaur that became bigger before the later ones.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That's also a bit. I'm just looking at the Wikipedia article now, and that's a second. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, if it turned out to be a non-tyrannosaur, and
I think it's now pretty solid that that this is indeed a tyrannosaur. I think one of the few people to still argue against this is David Peters. But that's a whole new world we would need to explore. Better don't scratch that surface. Yeah. I think the last thing I heard was that it's pretty that they are pretty confident that it's a Tyrannosaur.
Yeah, I mean, you got the whole skeleton.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Yeah, it says, and I'm just looking at Wikipedia now, and it says that 2016, a phylogenetic analysis by Thomas Carr and Stefan Broussat placed it in the family Proceratosauridae.
That's a family which is very basal.
Well, okay, then I'm convinced. Because like before this conversation, I hadn't really given it a close look. But all right, let's move on then. Are we allowed to speak about the Specflox, Paleoflox here, or is that?
I think that would go a little too far.
Okay.
Yeah,
well,
we can mention that there are chat groups
where these things are being discussed, and
where we go
I'm sure there's more than one. Yeah. But what I find interesting about these chat groups is like I'm not giving any names, but so they present a new way to share these kind of artworks and discoveries.
Yeah.
Where it's all in forms of conversation, and like the media analyst in me sees that as a really interesting development, where what I notice is that a lot of people share works in progress without even having to finish them sometimes. And
yeah, I think one big part of Palaeoart today is the discussion.
The
constant shift of science and therefore art.
And that's
I think it's such a fast moving and lively field that it's you need to somehow show the process and your thoughts behind it.
Oh yeah, by all means. And that's what I find it very interesting. Even though the sketches, artworks aren't complete,
yeah.
I mean individually they are like, okay, not very good, okay? But if you look at the whole conversation, I think that's like a big body of work right there.
Yeah.
That's really underappreciated, I think. I mean, who knows, maybe in the future, in fields beyond paleontology, I mean, you could study this strings of conversation with words and images and discussions.
Yeah. It goes on and on and on, and it somehow sometimes creates little worlds on their own.
Oh yeah. No, I think it's a legitimate form of literature, you know.
Yeah,
and
in a way.
It's a pity it's not being preserved as diligently.
Yeah.
And
we preserve it sometimes in form of memes.
Oh yeah, we do. But I mean, imagine 100 years ago, 150 years ago, people like the guy who discovered Protoceratops, Andrews.
Yes, yeah.
Or like the old Roy Chapman. If those guys had those Facebook groups, or like Marsh and Cope had this kind of.
Oh, Marsh and Cope, that would be
the flame war
group.
Yeah. But if one could read that, I think it would tell us so much more about. I mean, so.
No, I think besides maybe physics, paleontology is a field that benefits the most from the internet. I think it was one of the first files actually who used it for its for connections and so on. And you just have to look at the numbers. How many more vertebrate paleontologies we have these days. A friend of mine who is a paleontologist just told me recently, look around you. During my time there were maybe 700 vertebrate paleontologies worldwide, and now we have 7,000 or more.
Oh yeah, by all means. And it's a very distributed, it's almost like a genetic disease that crops up randomly among populations. Because I mean in our own Facebook group there's people from Istanbul, you're from Germany, there's friends from Sri Lanka, New York, Australia. It's like an endemic thing. And I remember this news story from a month ago or a few months ago, and it said that the only thing conservatives and liberals can agree on is dinosaurs. Did you read this? Did you hear about this?
I think I skipped over it because I thought, it's this way. I think I had something different to do during that time.
But it's very interesting because
of
it's
course.
Almost as if Well, I mean, that news story was a bit of a clickbait too, because it just happened at the time of the Trump election and everyone was at each other's throats. But in a way, it had a kernel of truth. For example, Newt Gingrich, one of the notorious conservative politicians in the US, he is a big herp and dinosaur nerd, or so it seems. And I mean, politics aside, all these people coming from different places with this, it's like a virus almost. And I find this very interesting, this pattern of dispersal.
It's very hard to explain, even if you are part of it, why this is so fascinating.
And I think these kind of people are always more detached from political backgrounds, whatever, and they have this common interest in this magical fascination of the past, which is, if you look at it in the bigger scheme of things, is a more valid way to spend one's time. And anyways, one of the things that fascinates me. And listeners, what do you think about this? Please add in the comments.
Oh yeah, comments are always welcome.
All right, it's been almost an hour and it's been great talking with you. I'm slowly getting a sore throat now from all this conversation. But let's do this, let's repeat it. And anything else do you want to add?
I don't think so. If we
what
do this
would
again,
be...
I will need to write down some notes.
Okay. What would be the one recommendation you want to give out to someone who's listening to this in, I don't know, Tennessee or somewhere?
Oh.
They just want to become a dinosaur artist and they're just starting out. What would be the advice you would give them?
I think the biggest challenge a paleo artist faces today is to be open-minded. Besides getting paid. But
forget about getting paid.
Yeah. That too. It can work, but rarely. I think it's such a quick-moving field, and you have to be flexible, especially in mind. Body too, but I think it's very important to keep every option open. Just look at it to close the circle at this new T-Rex paper, which opens the possibility that T-Rex could be totally scaly. So and now we have to wrap our mind around that, because we are so we have so emotional connections already to the pictures in our minds that it's hard to get rid of them. And I think there lies the biggest challenge of today, to connect not too much to the images we form. It's impossible not to connect.
Let go of your ideals,
I think
basically.
It's important to stay a little bit away and first think about before open the mouth. Or use a pen.
And continuing along this last question, it's the question of making money, of course. And that's a very hard field, but any recommendations you could give along those lines too?
Well, I think it's not a bad idea to directly confront the possible customer. To not always wait to be asked to produce something, but to go to someone and say, "Hey, I heard you working on that and that. Are you maybe interested on some artwork for that paper or for that exhibition?" And also very important is to network. I think to connect to as many as possible.
Just a second. My wife is calling. Don't hang up. Don't stop the recording. Hello. You're on CM Kosemen podcasts.
Hello, baby.
Huh.
How are you?
Fine. What happened?
Nothing. you're up to?
Well, I'm recording a new podcast with a friend, but it's almost done, and I'll call you back.
Okay. Yeah, well, there's no need for you to rush. I just wanted to hear your voice. I love you. Bye-bye.
Hadi bye. Nice aspect of domestic life. People think this is staged, when they watch the videos or listen to the podcast.
Especially now, because it's perfectly timed at the end.
Yeah. And in terms of money, I could just look, if you're a dinosaur artist and if you decided you want this to be your future vocation, there's, I think, two ways open. One is to just do it for dedication. And unfortunately, for example, that's the case for me. And you have to find a work that's not related to dinosaurs, but doesn't take up too much of your time. Doesn't have to make a lot of money, but you have to kind of scale your life so you have a more sustainable and low-cost, lean living lifestyle. And
yeah,
I mean, if you
you always need for such stuff very much dedication, but in that case even more, yeah.
And then for networking and opportunities, it's, as you told, extremely important. And one other neat trick is to attend all the conferences you can. I know many of these conferences ask for money, but believe me, if you show up at the door.
Yeah. When I visited the SVP in Berlin, it's I'm still have contacts from that time, and it's wonderful how quick you can come in contact with someone when you just walk around with a bunch of pictures under your arm, and suddenly drop them.
Exactly.
It's very let's say effective. It sounds so like we go out fishing for customers there, but it's yeah.
I mean, another along those lines, one last recommendation is to always, every year, take your best work, make it into a PDF, and also have that PDF as a printed out little folio of works.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And you could make this thing at a copy shop, and it doesn't need to be too expensive. Something like university notes where it's bound with a little spiral binding on the back.
Yeah.
You should be able to just whip something out and show it to people at a moment's notice. I think that's also very important.
Yeah, I usually have a bunch of originals with me and a pack of business cards. But I think that's even better. Yeah, I think Brian Eng specially made little books for last SVP meeting, and
really?
Yes, they look fantastic. I still want to purchase one of them.
Wow. Well, I'm looking at them. I'm looking at his work now, and it's really good.
Yeah.
And finally, before we go, who is your favorite dinosaur artist? I know this is a tough one.
I try to have no favorites, because I as always, I try to be as open as possible, and I have many artists beside paleo artists I like very much too. Probably most influential for me was maybe Douglas Sanderson, and still is. A lot of how he composes scenes and so on, even if I don't do it as
often.
Yeah, as calm. Normally his pieces are so I don't find the right word for it. You can really look at it for hours, and they are so timeless. I think even today they hold up very well. There are many pieces of, for example, Gregory S. Paul, which were very much the zeitgeist.
Yeah.
During their time, and Henderson in a way didn't follow this rule current. Instead, he just did his own thing, and it's still very beautiful.
Well, I would have to agree with you there. He's also probably my favorite artist too. Yeah. Another really little known artist that really influenced me was Friedrich Spindler.
Yeah, me too.
He's a German artist, and he has got this very interesting take.
Yeah.
And
I met him, I think 3 years ago. And nice guy, yeah.
And I would dare say that
his art. He's also very influenced by Henderson.
He was doing All Yesterdays before All Yesterdays was a thing.
Yes. I remember his iguanodon with lips, for example.
And the cow-like ears too.
Yeah, very, very, of course, very freaky and nearly impossible, but
still, that was one of the things that got me thinking, what if?
Yeah, I think this little question, what if, is maybe one of the most human things of all, and one of the most important things we have to keep in mind in Palaeoart, as well as in speculative evolution. Always ask what if.
Yes.
There's so much which comes from that little question, and I wake up in the morning and say what if, and it's really great.
Well, not just about dinosaurs. There's a lot of things I wake up in the morning and say, what if?
Yeah.
Sometimes it can get really dark.
It's one of these. I think that's one of the reasons why Palaeoart is somehow part of this larger world building activity.
Oh, well, on that note, you were going to say something though?
No, we should end probably. Otherwise it's going to be too long.
Well, there's no such thing as too long in CM Kosemen podcasts, but anyway. All right, man, it was a great conversation. Thank you so much for your time. And all our listeners, please check out Joshua's artwork at which website should I give? Your DeviantArt?
Yeah, DeviantArt is still the most active, at least where you can see the stuff in full size. Yeah.
Please check out Joshua's artwork in the description. It's Hydrotrioskrian at DeviantArt, which, it's better if you just click on the link because it's a kind of convoluted word.
Yeah.
And please share your opinions about dinosaurs, questions, anything you might have about the world of paleontology. Jot them down below. And
I will be in the comment section for answers.
Yeah. And also check out Joshua's YouTube channel too, because he has this really nice sketching sessions that are really relaxing and hypnotic, and
probably soon with narration.
Cool.
Yeah, so I have this new microphone, so I need to use it.
Of course, the means of production beget their own changes. Anyways, man, and it's also really interesting how you just start from zero and come up with a posed animal. That's a rare talent.
Yeah, I'm sometimes a little bit cheating and making a little sketch on a piece of paper beforehand. So I don't need to do all the 20 minutes videos 3 times to find a passable picture. But mostly I'm just starting right away.
All right, everyone. That was that from me and Joshua. Have a nice day and see you on another show.
Yeah. Bye.
And that's where we cut. And now, how about the recordings? How should we do them? Do you want to send them to me or?
Yeah, I think I will